If you don't get out quick, I'll kill you all.
Have you ever heard of that one upperclassman that everyone fears? A walking, talking rumor that you never want to run into in the hallway. And then there's Kurose, a kind-hearted first-year health committee member who's too shy to stand up for himself. But his high school life is about to take a very, very strange turn. Because he's about to have a run-in with his school's most terrifying legend, Haimiya-Senpai. She's intimidating, she's scary, and she glares at everybody. But here's the secret. For some reason, she's only kind to him. From patching up a scraped hand with a cute bandage, to sharing after-school cleaning duties, and constant, hilarious misunderstandings, Kurose is caught in a whirlwind of confusion. Is she the scary delinquent everyone says she is? Or is she the sweet, caring girl that only he gets to see? She's a mystery wrapped in a terrifying reputation, and he's the only one who might be able to solve it. What's the secret behind the scariest girl in school? Find out in this hilarious and heartwarming story. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get straight into the video. In the halls of a certain high school, there was a senior named Haimeia who was feared by the entire student body. Meanwhile, a first-year student named Kurose, known for his timid personality, found himself burdened with the infirmary cleaning duty yet again, left behind by his classmates. As other students teased him for being too reliable and unable to refuse, Kurose silently wished he had the courage to stand up for himself. Just as he was feeling down, a curtain in the infirmary was suddenly pulled aside.
A girl sitting on the infirmary bed tells the group that they have been acting too noisy. The girl glares intensely and tells them all to get out before she kills them. The other boys scream in terror and apologize as they flee the room, leaving a shocked Kurose behind. This is the senior from the rumors, Haimiya-Senpai, who is known for being extremely scary. She sits on the bed and scratches at her hand. Haimiya-Senpai frequently skips class to stay in the nurse's office. Because Kurose is on the health committee, he often has the chance to be around her. Haimiya-Senpai suddenly gives Kurose a bright smile and waves, asking if he was forced into doing the cleaning again. Kurose becomes flustered and finds it hard to process the fact that she is actually nice to him. Haimiya-Senpai leans in close and stares at Kurose, asking him what is wrong. Kurose collapses to the floor and shouts that he cannot take it anymore. Haimiya-Senpai asks if he is all right. Haimiya-Senpai gets even closer to check on him while Kurose reacts with surprise. She asks if he is feeling sick while Kurose thinks to himself about how good the situation feels. Kurose considers once more how his senior is regarded as the scariest person at the high school. Haimiya-Senpai offers to help Kurose with the cleaning so they can finish up quickly. Kurose reflects on how she helped him the day before as well. He begins to doubt the rumors about her being a scary person because of how kind she is to him. On the way to school the next morning, Kurose walks behind a group of rowdy students. He is annoyed that they are being so loud early in the day. A foot steps firmly onto the pavement nearby. Haimiya-Senpai glares at the group of boys and tells them they are in her way. She demands that they stop taking up the entire space on the path. The group of boys immediately apologizes and runs away in a panic. Kurose watches them flee and decides to take back what he said earlier, concluding that Haimiya-Senpai is actually super scary. Haimiya-Senpai stands still as her reputation precedes her. Haimiya-Senpai suddenly notices Kurose and her face brightens with a smile. She waves and asks him if he wants to walk to school together. Kurose is shocked by the sudden change in her attitude and nervously agrees. The two walk together, but Kurose is bothered by the fact that everyone is staring at them. He feels that Haimiya-Senpai stands out too much and thinks it is weird that they are walking together when they usually only talk in the infirmary. Nervous and blushing, Kurose eventually shouts out a question, asking Haimiya-Senpai why she is being so kind to him. He is certain there must be some kind of misunderstanding. Haimiya-Senpai pauses and looks back at him with a slight smile. She asks him what he thinks the reason is. Kurose is stunned into silence, wondering if she might actually have romantic feelings for him. Haimiya-Senpai watches him with a knowing look and giggles. Haimiya-Senpai cheerfully reveals the real reason, explaining that it is simply because she always sees him working hard on the infirmary cleaning duties. Kurose feels a mix of relief and disappointment at her answer. Haimiya-Senpai starts walking again and tells him to hurry up because the school chime is going to ring soon. Kurose tries to stay positive and tells himself he is glad he worked hard as a health committee member. He acknowledges that he has basically been doing all the committee work alone since starting high school. Haimiya-Senpai stops to point out a cat sitting on the sidewalk. Kurose considers once more how strange it is that the school's scariest senior is so friendly toward him. While Kurose is walking, a couple of other students run past him to look at the cat, accidentally knocking him down. Haimiya-Senpai notices the fall and asks if he is okay. Haimiya-Senpai reaches out and grabs one of the boys who bumped into Kurose. The boys wave dismissively and offer a shallow apology, saying they are in a hurry. Haimiya-Senpai intimidates the boy she caught, telling him he was the one who bumped into Kurose and demanding he apologize properly. The boys are terrified and apologize profusely, promising to be more careful from now on. Kurose thinks to himself that Haimiya-Senpai is definitely as scary as the rumors say. The boys run away as fast as they can. Haimiya-Senpai turns back to Kurose and asks if he is okay or if he got hurt. Kurose laughs nervously and apologizes for making her worry about him. Haimiya-Senpai notices that Kurose's hand is bleeding a little from where he scraped it. She points out a nearby park and says they should go there to wash it. Kurose is surprised by the injury. At the park, Kurose washes his hand at a water fountain while Haimiya-Senpai finds some bandages. She tells him to sit down on a bench for a moment. Haimiya-Senpai comments that the scrape looks painful as she carefully tends to Kurose's hand. Kurose becomes extremely flustered because her face is so close to his and her hands feel soft. Haimiya-Senpai finishes applying the bandage and tells Kurose it should be fine now. Kurose continues to watch her, still feeling nervous. Haimiya-Senpai asks if it still hurts, but Kurose quickly insists that he is fine. He is internally overwhelmed by the experience of being so close to her. Kurose looks down at the bandage Haimiya-Senpai gave him and notices that it has a cute cat pattern on it. When they finally arrive at the school gate, a bald teacher is waiting for them. He notes that they are 15 minutes late and asks if they have already let their guard down since the new semester started. Kurose tries to explain that there was a reason for the delay, but the teacher refuses to listen to excuses. Both students stand silently as they get scolded. The teacher tells them off for coming to school together like a couple and being late. Haimiya-Senpai reacts with a cold, angry glare toward him. Haimiya-Senpai smiles and sarcastically tells the teacher that his head was so bright she couldn't hear what he was saying. The teacher gets angry at being called shiny-headed. The teacher orders both of them to stay after school for cleaning duty as punishment. Kurose feels responsible for the situation and apologizes to Haimiya-Senpai, but she tells him not to worry. Kurose is impressed that she was not intimidated by the teacher at all. Haimiya-Senpai begins to speak as she looks back toward Kurose. Haimiya-Senpai gives Kurose a warm smile and tells him that walking to school together was fun, so the punishment makes them even. Kurose blushes while looking at his senior. He thinks that she is exactly as he expected. He concludes his thought by deciding that Haimiya-Senpai is both scary and cute. Haimiya-Senpai greets the teacher cheerfully, but he is still frustrated by her previous comments about his bald head. She playfully claims she was only talking about the sun being too bright today. The two arrive at the school pool in their gym uniforms for detention. Kurose initially feels guilty about the punishment until he catches sight of Haimiya-Senpai in her athletic gear. Kurose suddenly decides that getting detention was a great outcome. Haimiya-Senpai tells him to stop dawdling and start cleaning, and he replies nervously. Kurose tries to compose himself, reminding himself that she is only in this mess because of him. He worries that she might actually be upset about the manual labor. Haimiya-Senpai calls out to Kurose while holding a cleaning brush. He answers her with a start. She gives him a gentle smile and mentions that spending time like this might not be such a bad thing after all. Blushing, Kurose shouts that he is having fun as well. Haimiya-Senpai laughs and Kurose feels relieved that she isn't angry with him. Kurose hopes this is an opportunity for them to get closer. He realizes how little he knows about her and wants to learn more about her interests. A group of other students suddenly arrives at the pool area. They complain about the chore and decide to play around instead of working. The newcomers begin shouting and splashing water everywhere. Kurose's mood drops as he realizes his private time with Haimiya-Senpai has been interrupted. Kurose points out to Haimiya-Senpai that they have company. She remains silent, crouching on the ground. Haimiya-Senpai gives off a dark, intimidating aura while glaring at the rowdy group. Kurose realizes she is actually furious. Kurose tries to de-escalate the situation by suggesting they ignore the others and focus on their own work. Haimiya-Senpai dismisses his suggestion. Kurose is shocked when Haimiya-Senpai rejects his suggestion to just ignore the rowdy group. Kurose panics and wonders if she actually preferred it when they were alone while Haimiya-Senpai starts to explain her reasoning. A large splash of water suddenly hits Haimiya-Senpai directly in the face. The group of boys who were playing around realize they splashed her and freeze in terror. A soaked Haimiya-Senpai tells the boys that she is going to beat them to a pulp. The group runs away while shouting apologies, leaving Kurose to reflect on how scary his senior still is. Haimiya-Senpai looks at her phone's reflection and complains that her makeup is ruined, leading Kurose to think that being a girl seems tough. The boys finish their cleaning at high speed and leave while Kurose and Haimiya-Senpai lament their misfortune. Haimiya-Senpai complains about her soaked hair and clothes, threatening a legal case for emotional distress. Kurose thinks she sounds completely serious. Haimiya-Senpai decides to move on and ties her hair back to get ready to work. She stands in her white t-shirt and tells Kurose it is time to switch gears and start cleaning. Kurose realizes that her wet white shirt has become see-through and panics. Kurose looks away in a cold sweat, terrified that he will be in trouble if she notices him looking. Kurose offers Haimiya-Senpai his own jacket to wear. She is confused at first but then realizes why he is offering it. Haimiya-Senpai smiles and thanks him for being considerate, telling him that his gesture was cool. Haimiya-Senpai suggests they finish up the cleaning quickly. Kurose feels relieved that things are okay for now while she mentions that her clothes are a bit damp from sweat. Haimiya-Senpai asks Kurose to go grab a bucket. He agrees immediately, happy that he is finally alone with her. Kurose wonders what Haimiya-Senpai was upset about earlier when she said that something wasn't right. Seeing how cute she is acting, he dashes toward her. Kurose asks Haimiya-Senpai what she was trying to say to him before the water splashed on her. Haimiya-Senpai pulls up her jacket collar to hide her face and tells him that it is still a secret. Kurose begs her to tell him, but she tells him to hurry up and finish. She uses a mop to push him away while he continues to ask. The two of them continue to work on mopping the floor together. Haimiya-Senpai accidentally sprays Kurose with a hose and starts laughing while he reacts to the water. Kurose thinks about how much fun he had cleaning with Haimiya-Senpai. He decides to head to the infirmary because the changing rooms are locked and no one else is around. Kurose opens the door to find Haimiya-Senpai in the middle of changing her clothes. Kurose is completely shocked and freezes in place at the sight of her. Kurose tries to apologize and leave, but a dark, menacing silhouette appears behind him in the hallway. Haimiya-Senpai grabs Kurose and tells him that he knows what will happen if he doesn't forget what he just saw. Kurose runs away as fast as he can, shouting that he will forget it right away. Haimiya-Senpai watches him leave as the narration notes that he definitely won't forget. Later, Kurose stares at his phone while feeling an intense amount of tension. Kurose screams in frustration while his two sisters watch him. They wonder if they should take him to the hospital because he is acting so strange. While walking through school, Kurose struggles to forget an incident from the previous day. He feels conflicted about how to act when he next sees Haimiya-Senpai. Kurose continues down the hallway feeling nervous and unsure of himself. Kurose spots Haimiya-Senpai approaching and tries to hype himself up to give her a simple greeting. He notes that she looks as intimidating as ever in her hoodie. As they pass each other, Kurose attempts to say good afternoon. Haimiya-Senpai walks straight past him without saying a word or looking up. Kurose stops in his tracks, completely confused by the lack of a response. Kurose realizes he has been ignored and watches her walk up the stairs. He feels crushed by the interaction. Kurose panics and drops his papers, convinced that things are at their worst. He is certain that she is angry about what happened the day before. He thinks back to a recent time when she was smiling and friendly toward him, making him believe they were getting closer. During class, Kurose mopes at his desk. He concludes that there must be some kind of misunderstanding between them. Kurose tells himself that he is just a health committee member with no real connection to her. He remembers a time in the infirmary when she asked him why he thought she was being nice to him. Kurose decides that he needs to properly apologize to her for making her feel uncomfortable regardless of her current opinion of him. Kurose heads to the nurse's office expecting to find her there. He reaches out and begins to slide the door open. Kurose enters the infirmary and sees Haimiya-Senpai sitting on the couch. He stops and prepares himself to speak. Kurose calls out to her. She looks up toward him from under the shadow of her hood. Haimiya-Senpai greets Kurose-kun and asks if he is cleaning again today. Kurose-kun reacts with shock and asks her what is wrong. Kurose-kun brings up the events of the previous day and asks if Haimiya-Senpai is angry with him, but she is confused by the question. Kurose-kun explains that he tried to talk to her in the hallway earlier, but she did not respond, which makes her realize what happened. Haimiya-Senpai explains that she forgot to wear her contact lenses and had earphones in so she did not see or hear him. Haimiya-Senpai apologizes for making him worry while Kurose-kun stands there in silence. Kurose-kun tells her that he is very glad to hear she isn't mad. Haimiya-Senpai tells him that yesterday was an accident and not his fault, but she jokingly warns him to forget about it. Kurose-kun thinks to himself that he is happy things are back to normal. Kurose-kun admits that he was worried she had started to hate him just as they were getting closer. Haimiya-Senpai teases him for being so upset by the idea of her hating him, which causes Kurose-kun to get embarrassed and try to deny it. Information is provided that Haimiya-Senpai has poor vision due to myopia. Information is provided that Kurose-kun has normal vision. Kurose-kun holds onto a tracksuit that Haimiya-Senpai returned to him. Kurose-kun notices that the clothing smells very sweet and his heart begins to pound. Kurose-kun walks through a crowd of other students on his way somewhere. Kurose-kun overhears other students talking about the hilarious messages they sent each other on the Rhine app. He checks his own phone and sees that his only active chats are with his mother, the family group, and various coupon and sticker services. He sighs, realizing he hasn't made any friends to message since starting high school. He acknowledges that his notifications are exclusively from family and automated advertisements. Kurose-kun thinks about Haimiya-Senpai but quickly tries to shake the thought away. He worries about what she actually thinks of him. The prospect of asking for her contact information makes him feel incredibly flustered and nervous. He wonders what kind of texts she would even send and imagines her having a stunned negative reaction if he were to ask for her info. He envisions several worst-case scenarios, including receiving a cold one-word response, being left on read, or being blocked entirely. Kurose-kun dejectedly concludes that these harsh outcomes are actually quite possible when dealing with Haimiya-Senpai. Haimiya-Senpai suddenly appears behind him and asks if he wants to walk together. The surprise causes Kurose-kun to jump and shout in shock. As they walk side by side, Kurose-kun wonders why she always seems to show up exactly when he is thinking about her. Haimiya-Senpai shows him something funny on her phone. Kurose-kun realizes she definitely doesn't hate him, though he still feels awkward about their recent encounter in the changing room. He tries to work up his courage to ask for her contact info, telling himself that they are acquaintances, and such a request is perfectly normal. Before he can say anything, Haimiya-Senpai holds out her phone and asks if he wants to exchange Rhine details with her. Kurose-kun is stunned into silence, which causes Haimiya-Senpai to glare and ask if he doesn't want to. He frantically denies it and tries to clear up the misunderstanding. Haimiya-Senpai explains that she had wanted to get his contact info after they cleaned the pool together, but he had run away too fast. Kurose-kun panics, wondering if she can sense his thoughts. She tells him that because they are friends, it is only natural for them to exchange contact info. Kurose-kun is overwhelmed with happiness at being called her friend. Kurose and Haimeia finish exchanging their contact information on their phones. Kurose realizes he successfully traded info with his senpai while she laughs at the fact that he doesn't have a profile picture. Kurose looks at his phone and sees that her first name is Mio. Kurose excitedly exclaims that his senpai's name is Mio. Kurose tells Mio that he is happy to have finally learned her first name. Mio reacts to his words with a heavy blush and a shocked expression. Mio smacks Kurose and tells him to hurry up and walk while he wonders why she hit him. Kurose receives a message from Mio containing a bunny sticker. At home, Kurose giggles at his phone while his family members watch from a distance and suggest he should go to a hospital. Back at school, Kurose walks through the hallway and hears other students gossiping about Haimeia. Kurose stops in his tracks when he hears a rumor that someone saw Haimeia smoking. Kurose is shocked by the claim while the other students continue to talk about how the rumor might be possible. Kurose walks past the infirmary feeling worried and finds it hard to believe that Haimeia would be a delinquent. Kurose enters the infirmary to ask the nurse if Haimeia has been there, and the nurse tells him that Mio is currently in the courtyard. Kurose walks away from the nurse's office thinking the smoking rumor is baseless just as a door starts to slide open behind him. Kurose spots his senpai sitting alone with a white stick in her mouth. Senpai sits quietly while holding a small box and biting down on the stick. Kurose panics because he thinks she is smoking a cigarette. Senpai notices Kurose and calls out to him. She reaches out with the box and asks if he wants to have some. Kurose realizes it is just ramyun candy. Senpai explains that she likes them because they are crunchy and look like the real thing. Kurose tells her about the rumors he heard regarding her smoking. She admits that the candy makes it easy for people to get the wrong idea. She explains that she gets all kinds of rumors and does not really care what people say. Kurose tells her he is glad she is not actually smoking. She smiles at his concern. She teases him by asking what he would have done if the rumors were true. She laughs and says it was just a joke while Kurose remains flustered. A woman dressed as a maid stands next to information about supporting the translation team. Koi fish swim in the pond and munch on food. Kurose asks her if she is a big fan of the koi fish since she is always feeding them. She says she does not particularly like them but finds herself wondering what they are thinking about. Senpai wonders aloud what the koi would taste like, which strikes both the fish and Kurose with terror. A long silence follows as the koi swims away, leaving the two of them in an incredibly awkward atmosphere. While Senpai sits quietly, Kurose decides that he needs to find a way to be useful to her. Kurose quickly uses his phone to search for information on what koi fish taste like. He tells Senpai that koi is actually a delicious white fish often used in miso soup or simmered dishes if the smell is removed correctly. Senpai recoils in shock and tells him she was only joking and really did not want to know that information. She complains that her jokes never seem to land with him, while he realizes her style of teasing is far too advanced for him to handle. Senpai continues her routine of feeding the koi in the pond behind the infirmary. Back at home, Kurose's eldest sister Sora bursts into his room and asks if he is free this coming Sunday. Sora offers him movie tickets that would otherwise go to waste and ignores his suggestion to ask their sister Yumi instead. She explains that Yumi is busy with club activities on Sunday unlike him. Kurose asks what kind of movie it is, and Sora reveals that it is a hardcore horror film. Sora hands over the 2 tickets and tells him to invite a friend since he is now in high school. Kurose looks at his phone and realizes his contact list is extremely short, leaving him with no obvious person to invite. He considers Senpai for a moment but immediately panics and shouts that it would be impossible to ask her. Kurose hesitates, feeling that he and his senpai are not yet close enough to hang out. The idea of inviting someone out makes him extremely nervous. In his state of panic, Kurose comes up with the illogical conclusion that because both the horror movie and his senpai are scary, they are a perfect match for each other. His phone pings with a message from his senpai thanking him for adding her. He remembers her saying they were friends, which gives him a moment of encouragement. Another message arrives from her regarding committee duty for the following week, and he accidentally reads it the instant it appears. Senpai notices his immediate response and asks if he was already about to send her something. Kurose feels like the timing is terrible but realizes he can no longer back out. With great hesitation and trembling hands, Kurose begins to type out his invitation. While lying on her bed, his senpai receives a message from him asking if she is free this coming Sunday. They exchange several messages where Kurose nervously asks about her interest in horror movies and mentions the extra ticket. Senpai teases him for asking about her schedule while he frantically denies any deeper meaning. Senpai sends a message confirming that she is free and agrees to go to the movie with him. Kurose is stunned that she said yes and quickly sends a reply thanking her, telling her he will send more details later. In his room, Kurose feels a sudden wave of gratitude toward his older sister for giving him the tickets. Senpai lies on her bed among her stuffed animals, staring at the conversation on her phone. She holds her phone close to her face, looking flustered and wondering if he was actually serious. Her stuffed bunny toys sit on the bed as it is confirmed that the two of them will be going out together for their next meeting. Later that same night, Kurose watches his 2 sisters from a distance as they relax in the living room. Kurose approaches his sisters in the living room and asks Sora to help him pick out an outfit for Sunday. Sora and Yumi both react with extreme shock as they realize he is planning to go out with a girl. Sora excitedly promises to help him while Kurose tries to tell his sisters that the outing is not what they think it is. Sora makes a joke about bringing protection, which causes Kurose to get flustered and call her the worst. She tells him to be serious and trust her to handle his look. Sora asks what he was originally planning to wear, and Kurose asks her not to make fun of him before he reveals it. Kurose presents his original choice of clothes, which leaves his sisters looking disappointed. Sora admits that it was a very good idea for him to ask them for help. Sora mentions that as a beauty school student she will also cut and style his hair and teach him how to set it himself. Sora holds his face and tells him that he is cute just like her, so he needs to go with confidence, but adds that she has one more piece of advice. Sora explains that when a girl goes out to meet someone, she puts a massive amount of time and effort into her hair, makeup, and clothes. She advises him that if he thinks the girl is cute, he should not be embarrassed and should tell her directly. Sora then mocks him by saying she does not think he is actually capable of giving such a compliment, and Kurose reluctantly agrees with her assessment. Kurose thanks his sister for the help and heads to bed, though he finds himself becoming increasingly nervous. On Sunday, Kurose arrives at the meeting spot 30 minutes early with his hair styled, reviewing a list of dating tips provided by Sora. While waiting, Kurose wonders what kind of outfit Senpai will choose to wear before someone suddenly taps him on the shoulder. Senpai arrives at the meeting spot waving and calling out to him. Kurose is completely stunned by his senpai's appearance and can only think about how incredibly cute she looks in her casual outfit. Senpai points out that he arrived 20 minutes before their meeting time and he stammers while trying to explain his early arrival. She admits that she also arrived quite early because she got the train schedule wrong, which helps ease his initial nerves. She suggests that they start heading toward their destination and tells him that she is genuinely looking forward to today. Kurose nervously follows her, still overwhelmed by the fact that they are actually going on a date together. As they walk through the busy city, Kurose steals glances at his senpai, feeling the weight of the situation. He checks his sister's list of dating tips on his phone and feels insecure about walking next to someone as mature and beautiful as her, but he resolves to try hard to keep the conversation going. Kurose attempts to break the silence by asking if she usually watches movies, but the atmosphere remains somewhat heavy as she remains silent. He asks if she goes out on her days off, and she briefly explains that she mostly stays at home, making him realize the conversation is struggling to take off. While riding the escalator, Kurose worries about the lack of flow in their talk, even though she mentions again that she is looking forward to the film. He gets increasingly anxious as he realizes the conversation is not lively at all and fears that the date is going poorly. They arrive at the theater lobby and wait among the crowds of people near the concession stands and entrance to the screens. Senpai abruptly says she is going to the restroom, leaving him behind with a vibe that he finds intensely scary and intimidating. Kurose panics in the middle of the theater, wondering if he did something wrong or if she never actually wanted to come with him in the first place. Inside the dark theater, Kurose is too distracted by his senpai's continued silence to focus on the horror movie playing on the screen. Kurose watches a terrifying clown appear on the screen and realizes that the movie is actually quite scary. He hears a rattling sound and notices that something is shaking violently right next to him. He looks over to see his senpai trembling and making strange stuttering noises in her seat. Senpai suddenly grabs his arm with a tight grip, making him realize that she is actually terrible with horror movies. She admits to him that the film is proving to be far too much for her to handle. Kurose asks if they should just leave the theater now, and she quickly agrees to go. The two of them make a hasty exit from the cinema in the middle of the screening. Outside, a defeated senpai apologizes for the interruption and offers to pay for the ticket, while Kurose insists it is fine and apologizes for not knowing her weakness. Kurose asks her why she even bothered to come today if she knew the genre would be such a problem for her. Senpai turns away with a blush and admits that she simply wanted to come, then asks if that is a problem for him. Kurose gets incredibly flustered and yells that he is also very glad she decided to come out with him today. Senpai explains that she was probably acting down and quiet earlier because she was already feeling scared of the movie. She asks if he would still like to hang out after this, and he eagerly agrees while privately thinking that her fear of horror is unexpected and cute. As they walk, they decide to head to an arcade to look for plushies before Kurose tells her he needs to use the restroom and asks if she will be okay waiting. Inside the restroom, Kurose splashes cold water on his face in front of the mirror to try and settle his nerves. Kurose thinks about how much fun he is having despite everything that happened and notes that his senpai has a completely different vibe than usual today. He looks at the dating advice on his phone and realizes that giving her a compliment is going to be a very difficult task. He steps out of the restroom only to see her in trouble. Two strangers are harassing his senpai and demanding her social media information while she tells them to shut up and leave her alone. Kurose reminds himself that she is incredibly beautiful and likely deals with this often, but he knows he has to step in and help her. The two men continue to pester her, insisting that she just give them her Instagram handle. Senpai glares at them with an intense expression and asks why she should have to talk to strangers telling them to get lost. The men are taken aback by her harsh response while Kurose watches from a distance, thinking about how scary she can be. The men's attitude turns aggressive as one of them grabs her shoulder and asks if she is looking down on them. She tells him not to touch her, and Kurose realizes the situation has become dangerous. Kurose's legs shake with fear, and he struggles to make himself move despite knowing he needs to intervene. He notices his senpai is also trembling slightly and decides that he absolutely must call out to her right now. Kurose suddenly rushes over and shouts at the men, demanding to know why they are touching her. Senpai looks at him with a stunned expression, completely surprised by his bold intervention. The two men mock him and laugh, asking if he is her little brother, while Kurose glares at them with frustration. Kurose grabs his senpai's hand and tells her that they are going to run away together on the count of 3. He counts down, and they both bolt away as fast as they can, leaving the two harassers behind in the hallway. The man who was harassing her scoffs and says he did not need her social media handle anyway. He shouts a harsh insult at her as they walk away, claiming he only wanted her body and calling her names. Kurose stops in his tracks and repeats the insult to himself, while Senpai looks back at him in confusion. Kurose yells back at the men, telling them that using abusive language just because they got rejected is incredibly lame. Senpai and the two men stare at him in total shock as he continues to shout. Kurose tells Senpai that he was pissed off by what they said and felt he had to stand his ground just like she does. Senpai screams back at the men, calling them morons and asking who they are calling ugly, while Kurose finds her anger very intense. She smiles at Kurose and notes that he has to say at least that much in such a situation. They decide to leave the area quickly before the men have a chance to chase after them. The two of them break into a sprint across the building floor. They continue running together while sharing a laugh about the chaotic situation. They eventually reach a quiet hallway with benches and take a moment to rest. Kurose asks if she is okay since those men were touching her, and she assures him she is fine. Kurose expresses his lingering anger toward the men, while Senpai notes that they really told them off and says she feels like he has been saving her all day. Senpai gives him a sincere thank you with a warm smile, leaving him completely stunned and blushing. Kurose tells his senpai that he is the one who is always being taken care of by her. Senpai suggests they finish up quickly so they can move on. Senpai compliments Kurose on having surprising guts during the confrontation earlier. Kurose is flustered by the praise but admits his behavior was a bit crazy. Senpai tells him to pull himself together so they can finally head to the arcade. Kurose feels happy that he was able to take action for her sake. The two arrive at the arcade, both admitting that it has been a long time since they last visited such a place. Senpai excitedly finds a plushie she has been wanting for a long time. Kurose notes that it is the same character she uses for her messaging app icon. Senpai asks Kurose which of the Sub-X animal plushies he thinks is cute, while they look through the glass of the prize machine. Senpai confidently declares that she will win a mouse plushie in a flash. Kurose is impressed by her extreme level of confidence. Senpai repeatedly attempts to grab the plushie with the mechanical claw, but fails to pick it up every single time. Kurose watches in shock as he realizes his senpai is actually absolutely terrible at the claw machine game. Senpai heads off to get more change while Kurose looks at the prize and thinks he might be able to win it if he tries. Kurose inserts a coin into the machine just as Senpai runs back, announcing that the real game starts now. To his senpai's utter disbelief, Kurose manages to win the plushie on his very first try for only 100 yen. Senpai's competitive spirit is fully activated as she demands to know how he did it and tries to learn his technique. Senpai continues to fail at the machine and eventually starts hitting the glass in frustration while a panicked Kurose tries to stop her. With a terrifyingly intense smile, Senpai announces that she is going to go and find a staff member. Kurose watches in fear as Senpai confront a staff member and complains that the machine settings must be wrong since she cannot win. He panics as she successfully leads the staff member back to the prize machine. Senpai continues her intense pressure, stating that she cannot win regardless of how many attempts she makes. She suddenly shifts to a Cutie strategy and asks the staff member if they could move the prize to a spot where it is easier to win. Kurose is stunned by her unexpected change in behavior. The staff member complies and moves the prize, allowing Senpai to finally win the plushie she wanted. Senpai celebrates her victory with a large smile, making Kurose realize she is a real go-getter. She offers the mouse plushie she just won to Kurose since he had previously mentioned it was cute. Kurose explains that he actually won his prize for her and suggests they trade so they can both have what they want. Senpai smiles warmly and accepts the trade, noting that they now have matching items. Kurose looks at his new plushie and feels a surge of happiness at the thought of having something that matches with her. She asks if they should get going, and he quickly agrees as they leave the arcade. While walking through the city, Senpai remarks that the day went by in a flash, and Kurose notices that it is already dark outside. Kurose reflects on the many events of the day in silence as they continue their walk. He starts to worry if she actually enjoyed the outing before she suddenly calls out his name. Senpai thanks Kurose for the invitation and says she had a lot of fun. Kurose is so touched that he stays quiet, prompting her to ask why he isn't saying anything. He eventually stammers that he had a ton of fun too. While walking, Kurose says that the day was kind of unexpected, which makes Senpai curious. Kurose explains that he sees her as a cool and amazing person who speaks her mind. He tells her she saved someone who has no friends. He mentions that spending time together showed him sides of her that were different from his usual image. Senpai asks if he means that positively, and he confirms he does. Kurose admits that even though they are friends now, he still feels like he doesn't know her personally. He says he doesn't even know the reason why she is kind to him. Senpai listens to him in silence. He tells her he would be happy if they could continue to get along well. Senpai gives him a bright smile and says that their friendship is a given. Kurose looks at her and realizes something that gives him a shock. He checks the dating tips on his phone and sees his sister's advice about complimenting a girl's cuteness. He realizes he still hasn't done it. Kurose tries to work up the courage to speak, but Senpai sees her train coming and says she has to leave. He yells out to her as she walks away, attempting to tell her she was cute today. His courage fails at the last second, and he instead shouts that he is glad they got the cute toys. Senpai is confused but says she agrees. Kurose feels like a coward and a loser for being unable to say how he really feels. He gets angry at himself for failing to speak in the flow of the moment and realizes his sister was right. Senpai says she is going now and heads off. At Shinjuku Station, Senpai waves goodbye to Kurose and tells him that she will see him tomorrow. Kurose stands among the commuters, looking stunned by her casual parting words. He reflects on his time at school, noting that he has been alone since he enrolled and expected a mundane experience. As Senpai walks through the ticket gates, Kurose realizes that he is changing because he finally has someone to look forward to seeing the next day. Kurose waves back happily and promises to see her tomorrow, resolving to do his best and continue changing for the better. While riding the train, Senpai checks a message from Kurose where he thanks her for the day and wishes for her to get home safely. Senpai arrives at her door and prepares to unlock it while looking at the bunny mascot they won earlier. She enters her apartment, drops her bag on the floor, and immediately flops onto her bed. Lying on the mattress, she holds up the small toy and gazes at it. Senpai smiles warmly to herself as she clutches the mascot against her face. Kurose returns home and is startled by his sister, who immediately asks him how his day went. He tries to brush her off by saying nothing happened and that he is just tired, but his sister continues to pester him. His sister smiles, noticing that the success of his outing is written clearly all over his face. Back at school, Kurose walks down the corridor while planning out his afternoon tasks, including cleaning the infirmary and finishing his assignments. Kurose wonders if Senpai is already at the infirmary, unaware that she is watching him from a distance with a smile. Haimiya-Senpai startles Kurose-kun by whispering directly into his ear, causing him to cry out in surprise. Haimiya-Senpai greets Kurose-kun and asks if he is on his way to a committee meeting, which he confirms. They walk down the hallway together as Haimiya-Senpai mentions she is heading to the infirmary and asks Kurose-kun what he was thinking about earlier. Upon entering the infirmary, Haimiya-Senpai asks the teacher for snacks, while Aya-sensei notes that the two of them arrived together. Aya-sensei questions if the two of them have become close recently, which leaves both of them momentarily speechless. Haimiya-Senpai claims that they have been talking a lot lately, and Kurose-kun awkwardly agrees with her statement. Kurose-kun explains to the teacher that they went to see a movie together, using an extra ticket, leading Aya-sensei to ask about what they watched. When Kurose-kun mentions that Haimiya-Senpai enjoyed the horror movie, she reacts with an intensity that causes him to recoil. Attention turns to a specific animal plushie attached to Kurose-kun's bag, which he admits to finding cute. Haimiya-Senpai teases Kurose-kun by asking if having a matching plushie with her is what actually made him so happy. Kurose-kun's panicked denial of the idea causes Haimiya-Senpai to suddenly look annoyed and disappointed. Haimiya-Senpai confronts Kurose-kun and asks him plainly if he hates the fact that his plushie matches hers. Kurose-kun reflects on how he previously worried that Haimiya-Senpai would be put off if she saw him with the mascot she likes. Kurose-kun admits that he is actually happy to have the matching item but finds it embarrassing to use, which visibly shocks Haimiya-Senpai. Haimiya-Senpai tells Kurose-kun it is fine for him to keep the plushie if it makes him happy, while he gets flustered by her tone. Haimiya-Senpai decides to start wearing her matching charm tomorrow to make things easier for Kurose-kun. He worries that this will make it seem like he was the one pushing for them to match. Aya-sensei watches the two of them and finds the interaction adorable. Kurose-kun realizes that Haimiya-Senpai actually seems okay with the situation. After finishing his tasks for the day, Kurose-kun says his goodbyes and prepares to leave. Aya-sensei thanks him for his hard work. Haimiya-Senpai smiles at Kurose-kun and tells him that she will see him the next day. Kurose-kun is overwhelmed with embarrassment as he exits the room and closes the door behind him. Inside the office, Aya-sensei thanks Haimiya-Senpai for staying behind to help with the cleaning. Haimiya-Senpai mentions that she will be leaving shortly as well. Aya-sensei points out that Haimiya-Senpai seems much happier at school lately. Haimiya-Senpai quickly claims that the teacher is completely mistaken. Haimiya-Senpai decides to head home immediately to avoid any more teasing. Aya-sensei watches her go, noticing the rabbit charm already hanging from her bag. Haimiya-Senpai runs down the school hallway in a good mood. Aya-sensei thinks to herself how cute it is that her student cannot be honest about her feelings. Early the next morning, an alarm goes off at 6:20. A hand reaches out to snooze the phone. Haimiya-Senpai sits up in bed and rubs the sleep from her eyes. She walks across her apartment while complaining about how tired she feels. During breakfast, she eats a piece of toast and pours herself some coffee into a mug featuring the same rabbit character. She goes through her morning beauty routine by curling her hair and putting in her contact lenses. After putting on her uniform and shoes, Haimiya-Senpai announces that she is leaving for the day. A girl stands on a crowded train while looking at her phone. A woman nearby realizes she has a nosebleed and has no tissues to use. The girl notices her distress. The girl reaches out and taps the woman on the shoulder. The girl offers her own handkerchief to the woman. The woman hesitates to take it, but the girl insists she keep it and tells her to take care of herself on the way. The woman uses the cloth and thinks about how cool the girl is. Later, Kurose walks to school while the girl watches him from behind. The girl checks her hair in her phone's reflection and smiles before approaching him. The girl catches up and walks alongside Kurose. She greets Kurose as her senior. He mentions that her face looks red, but she claims it is only because he startled her. Inside a classroom, Kurose panics when he realizes he forgot his math textbook. The teacher tells the class to open to page 24 and calls on Kurose to answer a question. Kurose stammers and struggles to respond because he does not have his book. A classmate named Tanzaki slides his book over and tells the teacher that he was the one who borrowed Kurose's textbook. The teacher scolds Tanzaki for the behavior. Kurose thinks about how Tanzaki is a popular athlete in the basketball club who is kind to everyone in the class. Kurose reaches out to his classmate Tanzaki while sitting at his desk. He thinks about how different they are since he is a shy loner who usually heads straight home. During their lesson, Kurose whispers to Tanzaki and asks why he lent him a textbook and helped him out. Tanzaki laughs and says he stepped in because Kurose is clearly bad at talking to people. Kurose feels a sharp sting from Tanzaki's blunt and honest comments about his lack of social skills. The teacher yells at Tanzaki for being too loud in class. Kurose realizes that while he already knew he was socially awkward, hearing it out loud really hurts. Later on, Tanzaki shouts in frustration because he forgot his wallet and has no lunch. Kurose sits nearby and prepares to eat. Kurose offers one of his rolls to Tanzaki, explaining that he happened to have two. Tanzaki is surprised by the offer. Tanzaki excitedly declares that Kurose is a god and that they are now friends. He suggests that they eat their lunch together. Tanzaki asks if Kurose has anyone he is close with. Kurose thinks of Haimeia but tells Tanzaki that he doesn't have many friends yet. Tanzaki tells Kurose to just call him Toya from now on. Kurose decides that despite his loud personality, Toya is a genuinely good person. As they eat, Toya asks if Kurose knows a second-year student named Haimeia. The question causes Kurose to spray his drink in shock. Kurose frantically asks why Toya is bringing her up. Toya explains that something crazy happened involving her the day before. Toya describes how he was playing basketball with his teammates near the gym when he accidentally hit a girl with the ball. The girl was Haimeia, and she glared at the group while calling them morons and telling them to pay attention. Toya laughs as he recalls how their intimidating club captain was completely silenced by her intense reaction. Tanzaki notes that despite the rumors, he thinks Haimeia might actually be seriously scary after what he witnessed. Haimeia suddenly appears at the door calling for Kurose. Tanzaki is visibly startled while Kurose looks over in surprise. Haimeia explains that the school nurse Aya-chan needs help and she came to get Kurose. Kurose agrees to go immediately. Haimeia tells Kurose to come along with her. Kurose enthusiastically confirms he is ready. Kurose tells Tanzaki he has to leave for a moment and walks out with Haimeia. Tanzaki stays behind. Haimeia glances back over her shoulder with an intense, menacing expression. Tanzaki reacts to her gaze and thinks to himself that she truly is insanely scary. Tanzaki identifies himself as Kurose's best friend and worries that something terrible is currently happening. Tanzaki imagines Haimeia kidnapping a crying Kurose and dragging him away. A note clarifies that this is just his delusion. Tanzaki recalls Haimeia acting aggressively toward others. He worries that a frail person like Kurose cannot handle a senior who even their captain fears. Tanzaki decides he must save Kurose. He has a delusion of Haimeia using Kurose as a footstool while ordering him to buy her bread. Tanzaki finishes his food and sprints out of the room to save his soul friend. At the infirmary, the school nurse thanks Kurose and Haimeia for helping her move heavy boxes during their lunch break. Kurose tells her it is no problem. The nurse offers them a break and provides some secret snacks. Haimeia and Kurose eat the treats together and find them delicious. Tanzaki bursts into the infirmary and loudly asks if Kurose is okay. Kurose and Haimeia look back at him in confusion. Taoya interrupts Kurose and Haimeia to call Kurose over for a second. Kurose is confused by the sudden arrival while Haimeia wonders who the newcomer is. Taoya pulls Kurose aside and asks if the rumored Haimiya-Senpai is blackmailing him or exploiting some weakness. Kurose is startled by the accusation. Taoya tells Kurose to rest assured because he will save him. Kurose tries to tell him it is not like that, but Haimeia interrupts them from behind. Haimeia asks what they are whispering about and says the behavior feels super unpleasant. Taoya is intimidated by Haimeia's presence, but tells himself he must protect Kurose because she is smaller than him. Haimeia points out that Taoya was the one talking about her to Kurose. Taoya stands up to Haimeia and demands to know what business she has with Kurose regardless of her seniority. Haimeia reaches out and grabs Taoya by the cheek, pulling his face. Haimeia continues to pinch Taoya's face and tells Kurose that she hates this guy. Kurose thinks to himself that she is being far too merciless. Taoya panics and tells Kurose that Haimeia is extremely dangerous after all. Kurose tries to get Taoya to calm down. Kurose explains the situation regarding how the other members of the health committee skipped their work duties. Kurose clarifies that Haimeia helps him out frequently. Taoya realizes he misunderstood the situation, though Haimeia still maintains that she definitely hates him. Taoya hangs out on a desk and mentions how comfortable the infirmary is. Aya-sensei reminds him he is not a health committee member while Haimeia continues to express her dislike for him. Aya-sensei tells Taoya he can stay for a little while if he carries some heavy luggage to the supply room. Taoya excitedly agrees to help, leading the others to think he is easy to manipulate. After Taoya leaves, Haimeia says she feels exhausted just from him being around. Kurose asks her about Taoya suddenly showing up and getting involved with him. Kurose notes that today was actually his first time ever speaking to Taoya. Haimeia finds the way Taoya closes the distance with people to be creepy. Kurose tells Haimeia that Taoya is actually a good person at heart and is special because he was the first classmate to become his friend. Haimeia acknowledges that Kurose has finally made a friend, which seems to surprise him. Haimeia teases him by suggesting that he will visit her in the backyard less often now, mockingly acting sad about it. Kurose panics and insists that Haimeia is also a very precious friend to him. He continues by saying that he wants to cherish his time with her just as much as with anyone else. Haimeia rests her head on her hand and gives him a soft, warm smile. She pats him on the head and tells him that he said that very well. Kurose becomes extremely overwhelmed and flustered by her praise and the physical contact. He hides his face and complains to himself about how embarrassing his own words and the head pat were. Taoya suddenly bursts in laughing about a giant cockroach he found in the supply room, which visibly upsets the bug, hating Haimeia. Haimeia immediately attacks Taoya with a flying kick while Kurose calls out his name in shock. Later that day, Haimeia walks alone through the school hallway past the infirmary as other students leave for the day. She enters the room and is immediately irritated to find Taoya sitting comfortably on the couch. Kurose greets her while holding cleaning supplies, but Haimeia ignores him to demand why Taoya is still hanging around their spot. Taoya smugly explains that the teacher gave him permission to hang out for a bit because he helped out the day before. Kurose mentions that Taoya is helping with the cleaning as well, but Haimeia remains unimpressed. Taoya stands at the height measuring station and claims his growth spurt is still coming despite already being 181 cm. He then tells Kurose to measure his height too. Kurose measures in at 168 cm. Taoya and Haimeia both dismiss the result as completely normal. Haimeia is shocked to see her height is only 157 cm and insists there must be a mistake. She demands a redo while Kurose tries to get her to measure properly. Taoya notices the old-school style of the weight scale. He teases Haimeia about being surprisingly short for someone so scary, and she threatens to beat him to death. Taoya tells Haimeia to hop on the scale next. Kurose goes first and weighs 60 kg, which the other two again label as normal. Haimeia snaps and pinches Taoya's cheek with extreme force, causing him to scream in pain. Haimeia tells Taoya to die for being so insensitive. Taoya clutches his face in pain while Kurose tells him that he was in the wrong. Haimeia threatens to grow her nails out just to hurt him more. Taoya starts to fear for his life while Kurose suddenly remembers he needs to be at the staff room by 4:30. Kurose rushes out of the room, promising to return in 30 minutes. Haimeia and Taoya are left alone in a tense silence. Haimeia sits outside on the steps by the school pond watching the carp swim in the water. Taoya finds Haimeia outside. She lets out a groan of annoyance at his presence and he asks her why she is reacting that way. Taoya tells her that he finished wiping the floor inside. Haimeia remains silent and refuses to look at him. Taoya asks her if she likes carp. Haimeia tells him that she likes them 100 times more than she likes him, and Taoya laughs at the insult. Taoya concludes that Haimeia really does hate him. She tells him that he has a lot of nerve asking her that directly. The girl asks the guy with the headband why he spends time with Kurose-kun, noting that she does not necessarily hate him, but finds it unusual. She wonders if he is plotting something because Kurose told her they only started talking the day before, making their level of familiarity seem strange. He looks at her and says that there is no particular reason for it. He admits there might have been a specific trigger for his interest, but he mainly just wants to get along with him. He recalls watching Kurose clean the classroom more diligently than anyone else, even doing the work of others when no one was around to see it. He remembers a classroom meeting where no one would volunteer for the health committee because of the workload, leaving the class stuck. Kurose eventually raised his hand and offered to take the position if nobody else would do it. The guy noticed that despite his helpful nature, Kurose was always sitting by himself while others socialized. He observed that Kurose did not actually seem to dislike being around other people. He acknowledges that while others call him an idiot and insensitive to the feelings of those around him, he still noticed something about Kurose. He tells her that he can tell Kurose is a very kind person. The girl stares in silence as she remembers Kurose aggressively defending her from someone who was touching her. The guy explains that if they become friends, Kurose will no longer be alone and will be able to have more fun. He smiles and says he is doing this simply because they are classmates, while the girl looks down in silence. She suddenly strikes him across the face as he continues to talk. Haimeia tells Taoya that he actually makes some good points. Taoya is happy until Haimeia says she is taking back the compliment because he is being annoying. Taoya points out that her treatment of him and Kurose is completely different. Taoya teases Haimeia by asking if she and Kurose have a certain kind of vibe going on. Kurose walks through the school looking for Haimeia and Taoya, eventually wondering if they are out in the backyard. In the backyard, Kurose finds Haimeia holding Taoya over a pool of water with a long pole. Taoya screams that he is going to die while Kurose wonders how things ended up like this. Later, Taoya sits in a room laughing at his phone while Kurose mops. Kurose asks him what is going on. Taoya explains that he thinks girls from Hakata are cute, especially when his favorite actress uses their dialect. Taoya gets worked up imagining a girl confessing to him in a dialect while Kurose laughs awkwardly. Kurose says that dialects are not something you can just get, but Taoya thinks they add a lot of personality to a person. Taoya mentions that the Kansai dialect is famous and cool, which causes Kurose to look suddenly concerned. Kurose realizes that if he admits to liking the Kansai dialect, right now it will lead to trouble. Kurose imagines Taoya relentlessly teasing him for having a crush on Haimeia and fears this is exactly what is going to happen. Haimeia walks down the school hallway and approaches the door to the infirmary. Haimeia thinks to herself that it is not like she particularly likes the Kansai dialect or anything. Haimeia stops outside the infirmary door and listens to Taoya and Kurose talking inside. Haimeia walks through the school hallway with a dark, focused expression. Kurose feels relieved to have survived, while Tanzaki tells him there is no need to deny that something is cute. Tanzaki also mentions that Haimeia is not around. In class, Haimeia sits at her desk, dwelling on Kurose's comment about the Kansai dialect not being his thing. Haimeia walks alone, imagining Kurose laughing and saying that the dialect is not cute at all. A note confirms that he never actually said those words. Haimeia broods in the bathtub, recalling Kurose's unfinished thoughts regarding her dialect. The next morning, Kurose spots Haimeia walking ahead of him and runs up to offer a greeting. Haimeia turns around with a wide smile and gives Kurose a polite morning greeting in standard Japanese. Kurose is instantly confused by her lack of a Kansai dialect. As they walk together, Kurose makes small talk about the weather, and Haimeia responds using very formal, stiff language. Haimeia continues speaking, formally mentioning that she recently discovered a new release for Space Animal. Kurose wonders what is happening as Haimeia suggests they go and purchase the new item. Kurose realizes that her way of speaking is definitely weird, while Haimeia continues to use formal standard Japanese to talk about the heat. Kurose asks Haimeia if she is doing all right, causing her to lapse into a tense silence. Haimeia looks away and asks Kurose if he hates the Kansai dialect. Kurose is startled when Haimeia reveals she accidentally overheard his conversation with Tanzaki in the infirmary the previous day. Kurose stammers in a panic as Haimeia reminds him of his claim that her Kansai dialect was not his thing. Kurose shouts that it was all a misunderstanding, but Haimeia ignores him and explains that she simply decided not to use a dialect around people who dislike it. She then demands that he explain himself. Kurose looks down in silence, regretting that he became so stubborn for no reason while remembering Tanzaki's previous comments about the dialect being cute. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Kurose yells that he cannot say what he is thinking, leaving Haimeia baffled. Haimeia loses patience and starts walking away, dismissing the conversation. Kurose tries to call her back but stops, feeling dejected. Kurose finally finds his voice and yells that he does not hate the way she talks. He admits that while her dialect can be scary sometimes, he doesn't dislike it. Kurose apologizes for his behavior and explains that he finds her way of speaking to be wonderful, warm, and kind because it is a part of who she is. As they stand on the sidewalk, Kurose asks Haimeia to please not change the way she speaks. Haimeia remains silent and looks away, her face flushing as she processes his words. Haimeia looks back at him and tells him she understands, urging him to hurry up so they can keep walking. Haimeia continues on her way while Kurose watches her, surprised by her reaction. As they walk together, Kurose points out that her changing her speech was proof she was truly hurt. Haimeia admits she was hurt, but knows he didn't mean it, acknowledging that she was being oversensitive. Haimeia pats Kurose on the head, telling him she is no longer bothered, though she still questions why he was being so difficult. Haimeia assumes Tanzaki said something stupid to cause the mess and vows to beat him up the next time they meet. Tanzaki is left feeling doomed for a situation he did not intentionally cause. Later at school, Tanzaki complains to Kurose about a teacher and how tedious their upcoming chemistry basics class will be. Tanzaki's classmates criticize him for getting caught filming a TikTok during class while the teacher was writing on the board. He ignores the scolding and claims it is fine to seek excitement because classes are boring anyway. While walking through the school hallway, Tanzaki catches Kurose's attention and points towards something nearby. Kurose looks over and is immediately shocked to see a group of girls sitting on the stairs with one of them inadvertently revealing her underwear. Kurose tells Tanzaki that looking is wrong, but Tanzaki argues that it was unavoidable because she was in his direct line of sight and her skirt was too short anyway. Tanzaki laughs at Kurose for having such a hilarious, innocent reaction to the situation. They keep walking as Kurose tells him not to get so excited by himself. Back in the classroom, Kurose sits at his desk looking bored while Tanzaki sleeps through the lesson. As Kurose rests his head on his hand, Haimiya-Senpai begins to flicker across his mind, causing him to blush. Kurose realizes that Haimiya's skirt is also quite short and becomes extremely frustrated with himself for having such thoughts in the middle of puberty. Later that day, Kurose arrives at the school infirmary and slides the door open. Inside, Haimiya greets him from a bed and asks if he is doing the health committee cleaning duty alone again. Kurose stands frozen and flustered by her presence. Haimiya tells him she will help out in a bit and heads over to talk to the nurse. Kurose manages a nervous greeting in return. While Haimiya leans against the nurse's desk, Kurose cannot help but notice that her skirt is indeed surprisingly short. Kurose enters a state of deep self-loathing, wondering why he is suddenly becoming so conscious of weird things and calling himself the worst. Two other students enter the infirmary to return an ice pack. One of them notices Haimiya standing at the desk and stares. One of the boys remarks that Haimiya's legs are hot, prompting a panicked Kurose to yell at him to stop before Haimiya does something terrible to him. Kurose panics as he realizes the other students are staring at Haimiya. He then feels a wave of hypocrisy as he admits to himself that he is looking at her with the same eyes. Haimiya confronts the boys, telling them she can hear their comments and calling them creeps. She tells them to die, sending them into a state of terror. Haimiya expresses her disgust while the two boys scramble away, shouting apologies and blaming each other. After Haimiya sits down and complains that men are constantly thinking about perverted things, Kurose feels an intense pang of guilt for his own thoughts. Kurose agonizes over his behavior, feeling that it is wrong to look at his friend this way. Behind him, Haimiya relaxes on the couch with her legs crossed. Overwhelmed by his internal conflict, Kurose decides he needs to go outside and cool off. Haimiya stays behind, focused on her phone. Kurose sits alone on some outdoor stairs overlooking the water to gather his thoughts. Haimiya joins him on the stairs and offers him a gummy from a small bag. Kurose takes a gummy and starts eating it as the two sit together in silence. Kurose hears a group of rowdy students approaching from a distance across the courtyard. He suddenly realizes that the group's line of sight will lead directly under Haimiya's skirt from where they are standing. The boys in the distance start laughing and commenting on seeing Haimiya's underwear, leaving Kurose frantic for a solution. To protect her, Kurose positions himself directly in front of Haimiya, blocking the other student's view. Haimiya stares at him in confusion and asks him what he is doing. Haimiya laughs and asks if he moved there just to stare at her face. A flustered Kurose decides to use that as his excuse. Kurose keeps himself positioned in front of Haimiya while watching the group of students walk away in the distance. Haimiya demands to know what he is doing and tells him that she is not interested in jokes. A flustered Kurose confesses that he was actually trying to block the other students from seeing her underwear. Haimiya finds his honesty hilarious and bursts into loud laughter. Haimiya tells him he is cute and thanks him for the concern before standing up to explain a specific detail about her clothing. Haimiya lifts her skirt to demonstrate that she wears decorative safety shorts called mishaps underneath for protection. Kurose stands frozen in complete shock as he looks at her. Haimiya maintains a confident and smug expression for a few moments. Haimiya's expression suddenly shifts to a look of realization and growing horror. Haimiya turns bright red and panics as she realizes she actually forgot to put on her safety shorts that morning. The two desperately try to break the extreme awkwardness by shouting about the beautiful sky and the energetic fish in the pond. The scene shifts to the next morning as Kurose and Haimiya walk to school together before parting ways at the lockers. Kurose feels a surge of happiness and accomplishment for being able to walk to school with Haimiya again. As he walks through the hallway, Kurose thinks about how he would eventually like to walk home with her as well. Kurose is stunned to overhear other students gossiping and wondering if he and Haimiya are actually a couple. Kurose overhears the students continuing their gossip, claiming that it is impossible for him to be Haimiya's boyfriend. They suggest that she must be blackmailing him since they consider her a weirdo with a bad reputation. The words weigh heavily on Kurose as he wonders if Haimiya is being insulted specifically because of her association with him. Kurose sits at his desk in a quiet classroom lost in thought. He reflects on how he used to ignore what others said, but the current rumors are starting to bother him. He recalls Haimeia patting his head and praising him, but the thought of people believing she is blackmailing him feels like they have gone too far. Kurose rests his chin on his desk, hating the idea that Haimeia is being mocked just for being seen with him. He feels like a troubled lamb as he agonizes over the situation. Taoya suddenly appears and greets Kurose, asking him what is going on. Taoya pulls up a chair and asks if Kurose is feeling sick or if something is wrong. Kurose insists that he is fine. Kurose decides to ask Taoya directly if it seems weird to him that he and Haimeia have become so close. Taoya immediately confirms that it is weird and questions why Kurose would even bother asking such an obvious question. Taoya tells Kurose that moping is pointless and advises him to simply ask Haimeia directly what she thinks about the situation. Kurose admits that he wouldn't be this worried if he actually had the courage to ask her something like that. In classroom 2-4, Haimeia sits by herself at her desk, staring off into space with a bored expression. A loud crash echoes through the room as Haimeia's pencil case and supplies spill all over the floor. A few students nearby offer to help Haimeia pick up her things. She thanks them, and the other students realize it is actually the first time they have ever spoken to her. Kurose walks down the hallway with Taoya and looks toward classroom 2-4, identifying it as the room where Haimeia has her classes. Kurose peers into classroom 2-4 and sees Haimeia sitting at a desk and interacting with other students. Haimeia smiles and laughs while talking to one of her classmates. Taoya asks what is wrong, but stunned, Kurose claims it is nothing and walks away down the hall. Haimeia catches a glimpse of Kurose walking past the door and looks confused as he leaves. Kurose reflects on the fact that this is the first time he has seen Haimeia when she is not with him or in the infirmary. He worries that, while she has become a special person to him, he might just be one of many ordinary friends from her perspective. He watches Haimeia smiling with others and worries that being associated with him will only cause more people to speak ill of her. Kurose arrives at the infirmary where Haimeia greets him and tells him she has already finished most of the cleaning chores. Kurose responds awkwardly while Haimeia stares at him with a questioning expression. Haimeia smiles and asks Kurose if he would like to walk home together for once. Kurose is shocked by the invitation since walking home with her was exactly what he had been hoping for. He is suddenly reminded of the students' cruel gossip about Haimeia blackmailing him and being a weirdo. Feeling guilty, Kurose apologizes and tells her that he has to get home in a hurry today. Kurose runs out of the room, leaving Haimeia angry at his perceived rudeness, while the nurse suggests he might just be feeling unwell. Later at home, distressed, Kurose holds his head in his hands as a new message notification appears on his phone. Kurose is flustered to receive a message from Haimeia asking if he is feeling sick and telling him not to push himself too hard. Haimeia lies in bed and grumbles in frustration when Kurose only sends a simple sticker in response to her concerned message. The next morning, Haimeia tries to greet him, but a panicked Kurose shouts an apology and runs away while claiming that his stomach hurts. Haimeia wears her hoodie up and attempts to catch Kurose in the hallway, but he continues to turn his back on her and avoid eye contact. Haimeia corners him outside the infirmary and asks if he is free to walk home, causing Kurose to start sweating as he tries to make another excuse. Haimeia slams her hand against the wall to block Kurose's escape as he trembles in terror. Haimeia demands to know what is wrong with his attitude and insists that she won't understand his problem unless he explains it. The two face each other in a tense standoff as Haimeia waits for a real answer. Haimeia pins him against the wall and tells him that he needs to be honest about what is on his mind. Kurose feels like his situation is finally hopeless, while Haimeia continues to glare at him. Haimeia clenches her fist and offers to apologize if she has done something wrong, demanding that he finally speak up. Kurose finally tells Haimeia that he doesn't think she should be hanging out with someone like him anymore. Haimeia is left stunned and silent by his sudden statement. Kurose explains that being with him will only end up causing her trouble, but Haimeia remains confused and asks what he means by that. Kurose elaborates that after they walked to school together, people began whispering and saying bad things about her because of their relationship. Haimeia acknowledges that walking to school together or matching might give people the wrong idea. She asks Kurose if he has other friends he hangs out with besides her. She continues by saying he probably doesn't want rumors spreading and that she would feel terrible if he got in trouble because of her. Haimeia tells him that she really hates this kind of situation. Kurose remains silent and looks down. Haimeia asks if this behavior is his way of being considerate toward her. She questions if he is letting the opinions of others control him and if he even thinks about her feelings before saying such things. Haimeia asks if he would die if someone told him to because she doesn't feel any conviction behind his words. Haimeia walks out of the room telling him that she is angry and that he should figure out why once he has cooled off. Kurose stands alone in the hallway looking shocked. Kurose sinks to the floor and pulls his legs in close. At home, the youngest sibling Yumi tells her older sister that their brother has gone crazy. Kurose lies on his bed playing dark chords on a guitar and singing about how life is a waste and death is salvation. His sisters watch from the door thinking the song is awful and that he is acting creepy. The older sister tells Yumi to go talk to him and find out what is going on. Yumi approaches the bed and asks what is wrong while Kurose stares blankly at the ceiling and continues to play. Yumi asks if something happened with the girl he went out with before, which causes Kurose to jump in surprise. Yumi points out that he probably tried to be considerate and just made the girl angry instead. Kurose is startled by how accurately she guessed the situation. Kurose looks away and admits that he thought he was doing the right thing, but it just backfired. Yumi lets out a sigh while watching him. Yumi asks him if he remembers when she caught a cold 2 years ago. Kurose is confused about why she is bringing up a time when everyone else was away from the house. In a flashback, Kurose checks on Yumi and tells her that her fever has gone down a bit after taking her medicine. Yumi apologizes to her brother for being sick. Kurose tells her not to worry because their mother left notes and instructs her to just rest. He explains the bad timing of their parents being on a business trip and their older sister traveling. Kurose says he will be in his room and to call him if she needs anything. Yumi agrees and says she will just play some games while he looks back at her. During the time she was sick, Kurose spent his time checking her fever playing video games by her side and feeding her porridge. The next day, Yumi feels completely healed. Since her brother has already gone to school, she decides to go into his room to borrow a game because she is bored. While looking around, Yumi finds a ticket for a live show by a band called Funk on Bird that her brother likes. Yumi is shocked to realize that the date on the ticket was for the previous day, meaning he missed the concert. In the present, Kurose explains that he couldn't possibly leave her alone with a cold just to go to a concert and that their mother would have been furious. Yumi admits that she felt so bad about it that she pretended not to notice back then. Yumi tells him that she was happy he stayed home for her and that playing games together and having him make porridge was a fun experience for her. She looks at him seriously and says that the part that actually made her sad was the fact that he never told her about the show. Yumi explains that she was already in 6th grade and her cold was getting better, so she could have taken care of herself if she had known he had a show to attend. She tells him that while she is still grateful for his consideration, she regrets that he missed the live show he bought with his allowance because of her. Kurose listens quietly as they sit in his room. Yumi tells Kurose that he is too considerate and ends up forcing his one-sided kindness on people instead of having a real discussion. Kurose looks shocked by her blunt assessment. Yumi looks him in the eye and tells him to start being more honest with himself. Kurose is left speechless by her advice. She explains that the people who care about him won't be happy even if things work out through him holding back. Kurose looks down and processes her words. Kurose reflects on his actions and realizes he should have been honest about his feelings so they could talk. He admits that staying away from his senior was just him forcing his kindness on her without considering her actual feelings. He continues to feel like the worst for pushing Haimiya-Senpai away when she was still treating him the same as always despite the rumors. Kurose resolves to stop running away and finally be honest with himself. Kurose tells Yumi that he finally gets it and thanks her. He reaches out and pats her on the head while she smiles. Yumi says he should buy her an effects pedal as a consultation fee, but Kurose yells that he never agreed to that. Their older sister watches them bicker from the doorway. The older sister thinks about how Kurose has always been too kind to everyone and feels proud of how much her siblings have grown up. The next day at school, Kurose stands outside the infirmary as birds fly through the cloudy sky. Kurose admits to himself that he is still scared to face Haimiya-Senpai. He remembers spending a long time at home trying to figure out how to apologize properly before finally opening the infirmary door. Kurose enters the quiet room and asks Aya-sensei if Haimiya-Senpai has been there today. Aya-sensei explains that Mio hasn't come by and is likely in her classroom. Kurose thanks her for the information. Kurose heads out as Aya-sensei silently wishes him luck. On her desk is a note from Mio asking her to tell Kurose to find her in her classroom if he comes looking. Kurose walks toward the classroom, noting how unusual it is for Haimiya-Senpai to miss her usual time in the infirmary. He worries that she might be avoiding him on purpose. He arrives at classroom 2-4 and tells himself to stop overthinking before sliding the door open. Kurose spots Haimiya-Senpai sitting inside and calls out to her, looking visibly nervous. He approaches her desk and offers an apology for showing up at her classroom so suddenly. She remains seated and silent. He asks if they can talk for a moment, but she ignores him and continues writing in her notebook. Haimiya-Senpai turns her head away with a dismissive look, leaving him confused. She tells him that she has no interest in talking to people who don't want to be around her. Kurose tries to tell her that she has the wrong idea. Kurose clenches his fist as the tension between them grows. He bows his head and offers a sincere apology for his actions the previous day. Haimiya-Senpai watches him with a cold, unmoving expression. She simply acknowledges his words but keeps a distant look of rejection on her face. Kurose attempts to keep explaining himself, but she cuts him off by saying she doesn't care about his apology. Kurose stands before her feeling like she truly wants nothing to do with him and fearing they will never speak casually again. He clenches both of his fists tightly as he struggles with what to say next. He remembers her kindness and the happy times they spent together, refusing to let those days act like they never happened. Heeding Yumi's advice about being honest, Kurose shouts that his feelings won't get through unless he finally speaks the truth. Kurose shouts through tears that he actually wanted to walk home with Haimiya-Senpai. Haimeia stares at him with wide, shocked eyes. Kurose explains that seeing her talk to others in her class made him feel humble and made him wonder why someone like him was even with her. He admits that because people were bad-mouthing her for being with him, he selfishly decided it was better to stay away without ever asking how she felt. He yells that if she doesn't mind, he wants to get along with her regardless of what anyone says or if they match. Kurose shouts that his true reason for wanting to be around her is simply because she was kind to him. Kurose realizes he has said everything on his mind and doesn't care about her reaction anymore, but wonders why he is still crying. He wonders if he is just acting weird because he stayed awake all night overthinking. Kurose prepares to head home and apologizes for making the situation awkward, but Haimeia tells him to wait. Haimeia looks flustered and asks him why he is crying. She tells him to sit down for a moment while Kurose wipes his eyes and calls himself pathetic for crying when he doesn't even know why. Haimeia hands him a tissue and admits she was only annoyed because he was acting differently than usual and saying things he didn't mean. She smiles at him and says she is honestly happy that he spoke his mind. Haimeia apologizes for being harsh and not understanding his true feelings. Kurose tells her not to apologize. Haimeia giggles and says she will forgive him since he was thinking about her enough to cry. Kurose gets flustered and blames his behavior on a lack of sleep. Haimeia continues to tease Kurose about being so focused on her that he couldn't even sleep. Kurose yells in embarrassment while she giggles at his reaction. Haimeia tells Kurose plainly that she isn't the type of person who cares what others think and that she is with him by choice. Kurose listens silently as she explains her perspective. Haimeia admits that she doesn't actually have anyone she is close with in her own class. Kurose looks shocked by this revelation while birds fly past the window. Kurose asks if she was studying and notes that she is surprisingly diligent. Haimeia confirms and mentions that midterms are coming up soon, so she needs to prepare. Haimeia leans forward and asks if he wants to study together. Kurose is taken aback by the sudden invitation. Haimeia laughs and offers to teach him the parts he doesn't understand. Kurose stands up quickly, asking if that is really okay for her to do. Kurose rushes out of the classroom to get his own study materials, promising to be right back. Haimeia watches him go from her desk. Running through the hallway, Kurose feels relieved that he managed to make up with Haimeia and is excited about getting to study with her in her classroom. After Kurose leaves, Haimeia rests her chin on her hand and watches the doorway with a small smile before looking down at her notebook. Haimeia leans her head on her hand and thinks to herself that he is way too cute. Later, the two of them sit across from each other at desks to start their session. Kurose looks surprised as they begin working. Haimeia offers to teach him something useful. Kurose admits that he is really bad at basic chemistry and doesn't understand things like the ionization series at all. Haimeia writes a mnemonic device into a notebook and tells him that if he memorizes it, he'll have an easy win on the test. Kurose agrees to follow her instruction. Kurose asks if she is good at chemistry since they have never talked about studying before. Haimeia reveals that she is a science major, which comes as a surprise to him. Haimeia tells him to come ask her if there is anything he doesn't understand, though she warns him that her tutoring style is strict. Kurose looks at her and then turns back to his notes. Kurose notices Haimia's first name, Mio, written on the cover of her notebook. Kurose observes that her name is written with the characters for beautiful and cherry blossom. Haimeia realizes he didn't know it until now but says it doesn't really matter. Kurose smiles and repeats her name to himself. He thinks to himself that the name really suits her and that it is lovely. Kurose asks her why her name is written with the characters for beautiful and cherry blossom. Haimeia laughs and tells him that she will explain the reason to him another time. Haimeia moves on from the topic and asks Kurose what his first name is. Kurose asks if she really didn't know his name. Haimeia explains that there has been an opportunity to find out and that he is just Kurose-kun to her. Kurose realizes that he never actually told her despite the time they spend together. He figures it's because they are in different grades and usually just hang out in the infirmary. Haimeia suddenly gets excited and bets that she can guess his given name. Haimeia guesses Taro and then Kaito. Kurose tells her she's wrong and asks if she's already bored with studying. Haimeia continues guessing with Shiro and then Kurose D. Racha. Kurose tells her he isn't part of a legendary clan and asks her to stop making things up. Haimeia gives up in frustration and admits she has no idea. Kurose points out that she didn't even try to think about it seriously. Kurose smiles and reveals that his name is Ao. Haimeia remains silent as she looks at him after hearing his name. Kurose admits that hearing her call him by his first name is embarrassing while Haimeia continues to test the name out. Haimeia repeatedly calls him Ao-kun, causing Kurose to become increasingly flustered and confused. She continues to chant his name and pokes him in the neck, demanding that he say something in response. Haimeia leans across the desk and keeps poking his chest while asking if he is even listening to her. Kurose shouts that she is being mean and reacts with shock to her constant teasing. Kurose suddenly realizes that her first name is Mio and repeats it to himself. Haimeia makes a face and calls him an idiot, telling him that her teasing is payback for earlier. Kurose asks what she is seeking payback for, but she dismisses the question and tells him to never mind. Haimeia tells him to get back to their studies and Kurose complies while she laughs quietly to herself. While they are sitting at their desks, Haimeia suddenly reaches over and flicks Kurose on the forehead. Kurose reels back in pain and asks if he did something to deserve the violence, but she offers no explanation. Haimeia points to his notebook and threatens to flick his forehead again if he doesn't memorize the ionization series immediately. Kurose tries to focus on his work while Haimeia watches him closely as the sun begins to set. Haimeia explains a problem to him and instructs him to try solving the next one the same way, which he successfully accomplishes. Kurose tells her that her explanation was very easy to understand and that she would make a great teacher, though she jokes that she would be a scary one. Haimeia asks Kurose for his hand. He gets flustered and asks if there is something on it, but she tells him to just do it. She takes hold of his hand and starts tapping on his fingers. Kurose lets out a loud shout of surprise from the contact. Haimeia laughs while Kurose realizes that her hand feels very soft and fluffy. Haimeia comments that his hand is actually quite large. Kurose is overwhelmed with embarrassment while Haimeia laughs at his bright red face. Haimeia notices that his fingertips feel hard and he confirms that she is right. He explains that his fingertips are tough from playing the guitar, which surprises Haimeia because she didn't know he played. Kurose tells her that it is just a hobby while the sun sets outside the window. Haimeia tells him that she wants to hear him play the guitar. Kurose says that he would be far too embarrassed to play even if they had the chance. Kurose changes the subject by telling her that her nails are really pretty. Haimeia reveals that she does her nails herself rather than going to a salon, which leaves Kurose shocked. She explains that it takes 2 hours for one hand and that she keeps a kit hidden in the nurse's office for when she is bored. Kurose thinks to himself that being a girl seems rough. Kurose admits he doesn't know much about the subject and asks her why she goes to such great lengths for her nails. Haimeia says she does it because it's cute and maybe to torment Tanzaki. Kurose laughs and asks what she means by that. Kurose thinks about how nice the current moment feels. He wonders if things would be different if he were born a year earlier and in the same class as Haimeia. He imagines them being in the same grade and graduating together. Kurose's pencil lead snaps as he wonders if he could have spent every day like this with her. Haimeia smiles while looking at him and calls him an idiot. Kurose realizes that despite his thoughts about the past, he feels a certain way. He decides that the present is so enjoyable that his earlier worries about their different grades don't matter anymore. Kurose stands up and notices the time on the clock, remarking that they spent the whole time talking. Haimeia looks at him intently and asks what he wants to do next. Haimeia tells him that he knows what she is talking about and urges him to say it out loud. Kurose blushes and stammers as he prepares to voice his request. Haimeia pats his head as he says he wants to go home together, and she agrees to leave. The school nurse walks through the empty corridor to check on the two of them. Haimeia and Kurose laugh together in the quiet classroom as their study session concludes. The school nurse feels purified while watching the two of them leave. Walking out of the school building, Haimeia remarks that this is their first time walking home together, and Kurose agrees that the experience feels new. Kurose mentions that since he is not in any clubs, he does not usually leave at this hour, but then he notices Haimeia has stopped and looks at her with concern. Haimeia suddenly asks if he wants to make a detour, and Kurose enthusiastically accepts. As they walk, Kurose admits he is excited, while Haimeia suggests visiting a convenience store ahead to refuel after their long study session. The two students enter the convenience store together. Haimeia tells him she's going to get things for dinner, while Kurose heads for the drinks, agreeing to pick up a strawberry late for her. While browsing the aisles, Kurose wonders about Haimeia's usual diet and realizes that she often eats dinner alone. He spots a massive portion of garlic pork ramen sitting on the shelf. Haimeia reacts with intense embarrassment at being seen near the heavy garlic-filled meal. Kurose stares in disbelief at the size of the portion she was considering. Haimeia defensively claims she was just looking and never intended to buy it, though Kurose is still surprised. Kurose reassures her that he likes that style of ramen too, which causes Haimeia to fall silent. Haimeia threatens to kill him if he ever tells anyone about her food choice, and Kurose frantically promises to keep her secret. Haimeia admits that this specific ramen is her reason for living, since she doesn't have to worry about the garlic smell on a Friday night, and Kurose thinks to himself that she is cute. Haimeia points to a spot nearby and suggests they eat there, while Kurose thanks her as they walk out with their shopping bags. They take a seat on a railing outside the convenience store to eat their snacks together in the evening. Kurose mentions that he has cleaning duty in the infirmary this coming Monday, which leads Haimeia to ask if the third years are slacking off again. Haimeia tells him he needs to learn to say no to things he does not like, but Kurose admits he could never do something like that. Haimeia looks at him and asks if he is really that bad at expressing what he actually feels. She continues by saying she realized he is bad at expressing his feelings and tends to suppress himself quite a bit. Kurose suddenly gets emotional and shouts that he wants to cherish his time with her and has been trying to be honest about his feelings lately. Haimeia listens to his outburst and wonders to herself if his personality has always been like this. Kurose confesses that he wants to change but isn't there yet, and he appreciates that she remains his friend despite his timid nature. He smiles and says he feels like he can truly be himself around her, which makes him want to be more honest. Haimeia looks back at him with a soft, thoughtful expression. She offers him a bite of her food and tells him to open his mouth, taking him by surprise as she holds the snack out. Kurose immediately reels from the extreme heat of the snack, shouting about how spicy it is, while Haimeia laughs at his reaction. As they continue walking home, Kurose notes that the school cultural festival will be happening once midterms are finished. Kurose asks Haimeia what the festival at their school is actually like. Haimeia admits she has no idea what the festival is like because she didn't attend it last year. Kurose asks for the reason, and she explains that she skipped the sports festival and school trip as well because they were a drag. Haimeia laughs while mentioning that she almost had to repeat the school year because her attendance was so low. Kurose reflects on her words and realizes he had a feeling about her situation. He suspects that Haimeia is hiding emotional scars and recalls seeing her in the infirmary. He notes that despite being physically close to her, she often feels very distant. Kurose worries that she might disappear if he ever looks away from her. He feels anxious about whether he will be able to stay by her side for the remainder of their time at school. Haimeia surprises him by announcing that she plans to attend the cultural festival this year. She continues speaking as she walks ahead. Standing on the stairs, she tells him that she feels like it might be okay to enjoy school a little bit this year. She smiles brightly and declares that this is how she feels right now. Kurose realizes that she is just like him and is trying to make the most of the present moment. He considers if he is a good enough person for her to rely on. Kurose shouts that they should make plenty of memories together this year, wanting to give her a proper response. Haimeia looks at Kurose with wide eyes, taken aback by his sudden and loud declaration. She breaks into a joyful smile and enthusiastically agrees that they certainly will make plenty of memories together. As they walk down the outdoor stairs, Kurose reflects on how Haimeia brightens his day and gives him a reason to look forward to going to school tomorrow.